The fluorescent lights of Sterling & Sons, Inc. hummed a familiar, monotonous tune as Martha Jenkins pushed her cleaning cart down the long, deserted hallway. It was 3 a.m. and the only sounds were the soft squeak of her rubber-soled shoes and the rhythmic swish of her mop. For 15 years, Martha had been the silent, almost invisible, guardian of these polished floors and gleaming surfaces. She knew every creak in the old building, every hidden coffee stain, every executive's late-night snack preference. What no one at Sterling & Sons knew was that Martha Jenkins, the unassuming black janitor, owned the company. Her journey to ownership was a tapestry woven with threads of hardship, resilience, and an almost unbelievable stroke of luck. Martha had started her career in a very different world. A brilliant self-taught financial analyst with an uncanny knack for identifying undervalued assets. She had worked her way up the corporate ladder in the late 1990s. She'd seen the dot-com bubble burst, the housing market collapse, and the slow, agonizing decline of companies that failed to adapt. But life, as it often does, threw her a devastating car accident left her with crippling medical debt and a long, arduous recovery. The financial world, with its cutthroat pace and unforgiving demands, became impossible to navigate. She lost her job, her savings, and nearly her hope. Desperate, Martha took the only work she could find, a night shift janitorial position. It was a humbling experience, a stark contrast to the power suits and corner offices she once inhabited. Yet, Martha was not one to be defeated. She saw opportunity where others saw only grime. While cleaning offices, she'd often glance at discarded financial reports, internal memos, and market apps. Her mind, still sharp as a tack, would process the information, identifying trends, spotting inefficiencies, and recognizing potential. One night, about a year into her janitorial work, she stumbled upon a forgotten briefcase in the CEO's office. Inside, among other documents, was a detailed prospectus for a struggling, privately held manufacturing company, Sterling & Sons. It was on the verge of bankruptcy, its stock plummeting, its leadership in disarray. Most would have dismissed it as a lost cause. Martha saw something else, a diamond in the rough, buried under layers of mismanagement and outdated practices. She remembered a small, almost forgotten clause in her old severance package, a stock option grant from a previous employer that had been deemed worthless years ago. On a whim, she decided to investigate. To her astonishment, a series of complex mergers and acquisitions had unexpectedly revitalized the value of those options. They weren't enough to make her rich, but they were enough to make a calculated risk. Using a pseudonym and a shell corporation, Martha began quietly acquiring Sterling & Sons stock. She bought in small increments, through various brokers, ensuring her identity remained hidden. It was a painstaking process, requiring meticulous planning and an intimate knowledge of market mechanics. She used her janitorial salary to cover her living expenses, pouring every spare cent into her secret mission. Over the next decade, as the company continued to flounder under its current leadership, Martha's stake grew. She watched, listened, and learned, gathering intelligence from the very offices she cleaned. She knew the CEO, Mr. Harrison Thorne, was more interested in golf and lavish lunches than the company's bottom line. She knew the sales team was demoralized, the R&D department underfunded, and the manufacturing process inefficient. By her 10th year as a janitor, Martha Jenkins, the quiet woman with the cleaning cart, was the majority shareholder of Sterling & Sons, Inc. She owned 51% of the company, a fact known only to her and her trusted anonymous legal team. Tonight, however, was different. Tonight, the hum of the fluorescent lights felt charged with anticipation. Martha had called an emergency board meeting for 9 a.m. She had sent out the invitations herself, through her legal firm, under her real name. The board members, including Harrison Thorne, were undoubtedly perplexed, wondering who this Martha Jenkins was, and why she was calling a meeting. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Martha finished her shift. She exchanged her cleaning uniform for a sharp, tailored business suit she'd bought specifically for this day. Her hair, usually tied back in a simple bun, was styled elegantly. She looked in the mirror, a faint smile playing on her lips. The transformation was complete. At 8:45 a.m., Martha walked into the Sterling & Sons boardroom. The room, usually bustling with activity, was silent. Harrison Thorne, a portly man with a perpetually flushed face, sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, flanked by the other bewildered board members. Their eyes widened as Martha entered. A few recognized her, but only as the janitor. Confusion rippled through the room. "Good morning, everyone," Martha said, her voice clear and calm, devoid of any trace of her usual quiet demeanor. She took her seat at the opposite end of the table from Thorne, a position that subtly asserted her authority. Thorne, recovering from his initial shock, scoffed. "Martha, what in the blazes are you doing here? This is a board meeting, not a broom closet." A few nervous titters broke out, quickly silenced by Martha's steady gaze. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her eyes meeting his, "I am here because I called this meeting. And I called this meeting because..." As the majority shareholder of Sterling and Sons, Inc., I have a few matters to discuss. The room erupted. Whispers turned into confused shouts. Thorne's face went from flushed to an alarming shade of purple. Majority shareholder, what utter nonsense? Who are you, really? My name is Martha Jenkins, she repeated, and I am the owner of this company. She then laid out the meticulously documented proof. The stock certificates, the legal agreements, the audited financial statements confirming her controlling stake. The evidence was irrefutable. The board members, initially skeptical, slowly began to grasp the enormity of the situation. The janitor, as a woman who cleaned their toilets and emptied their trash, owned their company. The realization hit them like a physical blow, but stammered Sarah Chun, the head of marketing, her usually composed face a mask of disbelief. Martha took a deep breath. For 15 years, I have walked these halls, observing. I've seen the potential of this company, and I've seen its decline under less than optimal leadership. Her gaze flickered to Thorne, who was now slumped in his chair, defeated. I acquired my shares quietly, over time, using the knowledge I gained from being present in this building, seeing the true state of affairs, and leveraging a fortuitous investment opportunity from my past. She then launched into a concise yet devastating critique of Thorne's tenure. She cited specific instances of wasteful spending, missed opportunities, declining market share, and a general lack of vision. She presented a detailed financial analysis, demonstrating how the company's assets were being mismanaged and its future jeopardized. The information was so precise, so intimate, that it could only have come from someone who had been privy to every internal document, every whispered conversation. Thorne, finally finding his voice, tried to interject. This is preposterous. You can't just waltz in here and I can. Martha interrupted, her voice firm. And I will, Mr. Thorne, effective immediately. Your employment as CEO of Sterling and Sons, Inc. is terminated. The silence that followed was deafening. The board members exchanged stunned glances. Thorne, for the first time in his life, was speechless. Furthermore, Martha continued, her eyes sweeping across the room. I will be making significant changes to the executive team. Those who have contributed to the company's stagnation will be replaced. Those who are willing to embrace a new vision and work towards a brighter future will have the opportunity to prove themselves. She then outlined her plan for the company. It was bold, innovative, and surprisingly detailed. She spoke of investing in new technologies, streamlining manufacturing processes, revitalizing the sales force, and fostering a culture of innovation and accountability. She had been planning this for years, every late night spent cleaning, every discarded report read, contributing to this moment. I understand this is a shock, Martha said, her tone softening slightly. But I assure you my commitment to Sterling and Sons is unwavering. I have invested my life savings, my time, and my intellect into this company. I believe in its potential, and I intend to unlock it. Over the next few weeks, the news of Martha, the janitor who became CEO, spread like wildfire through the company and beyond. Initial disbelief gave way to a grudging respect, and then, as Martha's reforms began to take hold, to genuine admiration. She didn't just fire Thorne. She dismantled the old guard, replacing them with a mix of fresh talent and existing employees who had been overlooked and undervalued. She promoted Sarah Chun to Chief Marketing Officer, recognizing her keen insights despite her initial shock. She brought in a new head of R&D, a young, brilliant engineer who had been struggling to get his ideas heard under the previous regime. Martha herself took on the role of interim CEO, working tirelessly. She was no longer just observing, she was leading. She walked the factory floor, talking to the workers, understanding their challenges. She met with clients, rebuilding trust that had been eroded over years of neglect. She implemented a profit-sharing program for all employees, from the factory workers to the administrative staff, emphasizing that everyone had a stake in the company's success. The most surprising change was the company culture. The fear and apathy that had permeated Sterling and Sons under Thorne's leadership began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose and collaboration. Employees, who had once seen Martha as just the janitor, now saw her as a visionary leader, someone who understood the company from the ground up. Literally, one afternoon, a few months into her tenure as CEO, Martha was in her new, spacious office, reviewing financial projections. There was a knock on the door. It was Maria, the new night janitor, a young woman with a quiet demeanor and a determined glint in her eyes. "Excuse me, Miss Jenkins," Maria said, a little nervously. "I just wanted to thank you. This is a good place to work now." Martha smiled warmly. "You're welcome, Maria. Keep an eye on things, won't you? You never know what opportunities might present themselves when you're paying attention." Maria nodded, a thoughtful expression on her face, and left. Martha leaned back in her chair, looking out at the city skyline. Sterling and Sons was thriving. The stock price was soaring. New contracts were being signed, and the employees were more engaged than ever before. Her journey had been long and improbable, a testament to the power of perseverance and the hidden strength within. She had gone from cleaning floors to commanding boardrooms, all while maintaining her quiet dignity and unwavering focus. The secret she had kept for 15 years was out, and the world was finally seeing Martha Jenkins for who she truly was. Not just a janitor, but a force to be reckoned with, a true leader who had built an empire from the shadows. And as the sun set, casting long shadows across the city, Martha knew this was just the beginning of Sterling and Son's new, brighter chapter.